10 times the Pawn Stars were fooled by crooks. But before we begin, welcome to Filmboard, and we hope to see you stay until the end, as you won't want to miss out what we have to show you in today's video. Also, be sure to subscribe to our channel, click that notification bell to be notified of any future videos, and comment "The Pawn Stars" to be entered into our $100 Amazon gift card giveaway. Number 10. Gang Descendants. You may not know about the time the old man threw a party that ended up causing a lot of embarrassment. He was asked to organize a fundraiser for some businessmen. Included in the deal was that he make an appearance. The whole thing was designed as a publicity stunt from the very beginning. What the team hadn't realized was how it would turn out. The end result was a lot of negative publicity. The group they were putting the fundraiser on for were not the businessmen they thought they were supporting. No, it turned out to be 32 bikers who had been arrested many times. They had rap sheets full of serious charges. Their only motivation was to raise money to help with their legal fees. Unfortunately, the old man and the whole event was exposed as being totally shady. As it turned out, the Pawn Stars were unaware of the group's affiliations, but that's no excuse. They really should have done their due diligence first before committing to the event. Number 9. Dinosaur Blunder. Chumlee's opinion sometimes seems to get ignored or unappreciated, and the fact is he's done some awesome things, like the time he was given the chance to purchase a robotic 31-ton dinosaur transformer. The thing was impressive as it tore cars apart. Chum loved it and thought it was the coolest thing he'd ever seen in a long time. He stated on air that it would be a money maker. Rick didn't agree and dismissed Chum's suggestion. He just stopped Chum's idea in its tracks and told him he would never put his money in something like that. Rick had to swallow his pride when they all found out the dino sold for $575,000. Chum wanted the team to buy it for the price offered to Rick, $25,000. Rick took a gut punch when he realized they could have made an easy $500,000 on the one item alone. Chum earned a little respect with that one. We hope they learned their lesson and heed his advice in the future, but we're sure he'll end up as unappreciated as always. Number 8. Fake Diamonds. There's a lot of money in diamonds. The Pawn Stars know that as well as anybody. When they can get their hands on real diamonds at a discount, they pay very close attention. Sometimes they get a little too excited and start making deals with people they should watch more carefully. Rick was reminded that he shouldn't mix business and pleasure when he made a deal with his girlfriend's best friend, but he went ahead anyway. The man showed up with a pair of dazzling diamond earrings and even produced a receipt. He discussed their terms and everything seemed legit, so Rick agreed to hand over $40,000. He should have listened to the warning. Instead, he let the well-dressed, smooth talker pull a fast one on him. There was Rick, left holding the bag when the cops showed up. Rick explained the whole situation to them in order to clear up the mess. On top of that, he had to give up the diamond earrings so they could be returned to the rightful owner. The victim had their goods returned and the cops found the seller. He was sent away to think about what he had done. Rick, on the other hand, was left thinking about his own mistakes, decisions that left him out 40 large with absolutely nothing to show for it. He learned a valuable lesson about who to trust and that he should always double check with experts before purchasing anything with that kind of price tag. But as you're about to find out, he only partly learned his lesson. Unfortunately for him, he managed to lose out on deals more often than you'd expect given how sure of himself he seems on the show. Number 7. Lockbox Hardship. Rick made one of the biggest blunders ever during the show's 5th season. It all began with a promise of a Wells Fargo Strongbox. He was convinced that this item would be a huge win. What he failed to understand was that the Strongbox wasn't the actual item the seller was offering. The seller really wanted to offload 2 sets of balls and chains. He claimed they were just like the ones that were used in the prisons of Folsom and Yuma. Rick didn't listen to much of the sales pitch before he admitted they were definitely fake. So if those were fake, then most would assume the box would also be fake. It's not every day people carry fakes around in actual antique boxes, and the odds of that seemed slim to none. But it didn't look like the whole thing was working out in Rick's favor. He had already paid $450. When his experts showed up, they told Rick he had been completely taken. Rick's father, known affectionately as the Old Man, piped up and declared that he knew the box was fake the entire time. He said he let Rick waste his money anyway just so he could have some fun beating him over the head about it. Obviously, Rick wasn't too happy. The whole thing became a joke on Rick, especially when his expert told him that he had bought one of the fakest items he had ever seen. According to the expert, a pro should know better. Rick's dad was right to let Rick have it for making such a stupid mistake. Number 6. Cajun Pawn Stars. One giant mistake the Pawn Stars team made happened outside their store. It was pulled off by their own network. The Vegas team had always provided solid entertainment. It was made clear to them that there would be no other Pawn Stars spin-offs. They were well aware that only their team would be in the spotlight. Everyone was happy with that arrangement and everything went along fine until the network tried to launch a Cajun Pawn Stars without any notice. That really pissed off the Vegas crew. Fortunately, the new show didn't gain much traction. It still heard and they were rightfully very upset about it. Number 5. The real uniform. Another time sports memorabilia got the best of the Pawn Stars was the time Corey dropped the ball hard when he was told he could get his hands on a uniform that was worn by Willie Mays. He could hardly contain his excitement about the uniform, even when Chum pointed out that the uniform looked and felt like it was almost new. "Think about it," Chum said. "A real uniform should look really worn out and plenty of dirt and grass stains on it." Corey knew Mays was known for getting down and dirty, diving and sliding all over the field. Ignoring all that, Corey gushed about how big of a find this was and couldn't wait to throw the store's money at it. As it turned out, he should have paid more attention to his friend and coworker because Chum was spot on. That uniform had never been worn by Willie Mays during a game or anywhere else. As a matter of fact, Mays never even owned it. The uniform was nothing more than a sample worth maybe $3,000 tops. The day wasn't completely lost, however, because Corey did manage to recoup $19,200 for their semi-fake merch at auction after initially starting the bid at a grand total of $80,000. It seems everyone else noticed what the entire team in Pawn Stars, along with their team of experts, couldn't. The real worth of the uniform was only determined after the auction was carried out, meaning that the guys absolutely passed their misfortune on to someone else. The silver lining is that they weren't aware of this issue at the time. However, the profit compared against the $31,000 Corey originally paid for the fake still ended up amounting to a big loss. Number 4. Say It Ain't So, Joe. A recent encounter happened with fake merch. Shoeless Joe's John Hancock, the title of the episode, appropriately titled Say It Ain't So, involved what looked like an authentic Shoeless Joe Jackson autograph. Rick couldn't believe his luck, but he was definitely hesitant because he knew how rare that signature would be. And he also knew there were a lot of fakes floating around, but he ignored the red flags and the fact that the certificate of authenticity didn't look right. No, Rick didn't hesitate too long. Instead, he let excitement overrule his better judgment and plunked down $13,000 for the book containing the signature. Then he decided to authenticate it with his experts, so he arranged a meet hoping to get awesome news of his remarkable purchase. Unfortunately for Rick, both of his experts gave him the thumbs down. They were quite sure it was a fake. If that wasn't bad enough, it turns out what he bought was actually such a bad fake, an amateur should have spotted it. Someone of Rick's level of expertise should have noticed it right away, but he seems to have blinders on when it comes to certain types of items. When he falls in love with it, he throws caution to the wind and plunges in, ignoring what his gut is telling him. Rick has made really bad deals, but more often than not he comes out on top. That's got to count for something. Still, not checking with experts ahead of time when his gut told him to be careful was a rookie mistake. Ironically, he would have torn his employees apart if they had fallen for such a deal. We couldn't help but notice his experts get a lot of laughs out of his misfortune, and we bet they still can't believe he was so gullible. Number 3. Cowtown mistake. There's some question about this, but some people think the Pawn Stars were actually ripped off by one of their own on-air experts, Jesse Amoroso. Amoroso is a key guy with Cowtown Guitars. If you follow the show, you know he is a regular on the show. So here is how it went down. He's brought in to examine a guitar that was supposed to have belonged to Jimi Hendrix. Nobody blinked when he appraised the guitar as being worth up to $1 million at auction. Rick wouldn't move above $600,000. The seller left without making a deal. It turns out the guitar immediately ended up being put for auction for Cowtown Guitars. The way the story goes is that the seller suggested that Amoroso stole the Pawn Stars business. We can't say for sure what happened, but this deal went bad for Rick. We'll leave it up to you to make up your own minds. Number 2. Auction unique pieces. Then there's the time Rick went to an auction with high hopes and unrealistic expectations and ended up leaving down $100,000. He thought he could offload a bunch of his merchandise en masse, and he figured he would make a profit on some of his unique pieces. He lost out on an Indian motorcycle right off the bat, which ended up being $29,000 less than what he originally paid for it. The hits kept on coming. He sold a Fender guitar at an even greater loss. That cost Rick another $35,000, which is a lot to lose on a guitar of all things. It was painfully obvious to Rick that he had overpaid for that guitar. To make a bad day worse, the day wrapped up taking $64,000 in losses on 2 other items. Along with the other $36,000 he had already lost, it was enough to burn a hole in anyone's pockets. He was so disappointed and disgusted when he left, and he knew the conversation with the old man wasn't going to be pleasant. We're glad we never saw the outcome of that chat, but we're sure it was a rough one at the very least. Number 1. Rolex Scams. Rick's son, Corey, also had a few purchases that he's not proud of. He fell victim to scammers who took advantage of his inexperience. When he was working the night shift at the age of 18, he didn't bother double-checking a shipment of Rolex watches that came through the door. Some neighborhood thieves heard about the new guy running the shop at night, so they ran down to see what they could pull off. By the time he realized what was happening, Corey had already spent $4,000 on watches that turned out to be totally fake. His old man then had to pass on some very important advice. Never buy a watch without checking with him first, and of course, there was the problem that Corey caused by buying all those fakes with the store's money. Corey heard about it from his family for a very long time. Anytime a Rolex was mentioned in any conversation, Corey got dirty looks from everyone around. It took him a long time to get over buying fake Rolexes. He learned something else too. Dealing with the police isn't a great way to spend a day. Telling his dad and grandfather how he blew $4,000 of their money on almost immediately noticeable fake merchandise caused him a ton of stress he carried for many months. Those two aren't the type to take bad news quietly, and we would bet Corey had one hell of a tongue lashing when the news finally broke. Do you think the Pawn Stars went too far? Tell us what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to smash that like button, and also subscribe for new videos every day by turning the bell notification on, and comment below if you subscribed, and we'll make sure to reply and thank as many of you as we possibly can. Once again, thank you for watching, and see you next time.